Okay, hi everyone. My name is Paul Hurst and I work in the National Highways Digital Lab. Today I am going to walk through with you a data strategy solution for the problem, how can we best promote sustainable travel to the festival goers. Hopefully you were able to view the presentation we did to introduce the problem statement to you and have had a chance to work through the problem yourselves. So the main thing I want to stress to you is that there are lots of different ways to approach this problem, and your solution could quite possibly be better than mine. I'm going to show you my answer. Bear in mind, I'm not a data scientist, so I have opted to use Excel with some of its inbuilt functions to provide some insights into the data and create a message for sustainable travel to the festival goers. So the first thing I'm going to do is open the how-to guide that was provided to start to get familiar with the data sets provided and the high-level steps. So I will just open that up now. So we are going to be doing the data strategy path. So I will scroll down to this section first. If we go down, data strategy just here, path B. So on here, under data description, there is a little bit detailing the master files and the supporting data files, but then we have the useful bit, which is the data dictionary itself. And this is really useful to get a more detailed understanding of the data before we open the files. So there's some interesting column names here. In the master data set, we have origin, mode of transport, distance, travel time, etc. Congestion factor file, just a couple of columns there, eco-consciousness. We can see a lot of these, some of them are text data types, some of them are doubles, integers. So it's just getting familiar with the types of data that's going to be available for us. Emissions file looks quite interesting. We have travel mode, which is it's a text field and it describes a type of travel. And then we have emissions per mile, which is integer, and that's emissions per mile for each vehicle. So there's a few useful bits of information there we can potentially use. Doesn't mean we need to use all of it, but just gets us nicely familiar with what the options are. So now I have a basic understanding of the data sets. Let's have a close look at the data and see what we have to work with. I'm going to open the Excel files and just take a little bit more of a deep dive into each of the files. So I have opened up the festival's journey file. I can see in here we have a file with 9 columns and as listed in the data dictionary. And we have, if I scroll down to the bottom, have 1,501 rows. So minus the header at the top, that gives us 1,500 rows of data. If I just put a very quick filter on here and just have a look at what some of the values are. If we click on origin, we can see we have a few different source start journey locations, and we've also got some blanks there. Mode of transport, bus, electric car, petrol car, train, walk, and again some blanks. And we've got carpool, value 1, 2, 3, 4, and some blanks. Weather has cloud, rainy, sunny. We have peak or no peak, and we have weekday and weekend. So we can see that there's going to be some rows with missing values, like here, row 11, there's a blank. We haven't got a origin value for row 11. If we scroll down a bit further, see if we can see anything else with some other. blanks in here somewhere. There's another one there. That's completely empty row. So this is a very real problem in the world of data. You have to decide how you want to deal with this. Will the missing data stop you from arriving at a solution to the problem? How big of a problem is this? So if I have a look at blanks in the origin, so the first thing to notice is there's something strange going on with the filtering at the minute. It's not filtering just the blanks, it's filtering other values below, and that is because we have this completely blank row here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just delete that row because it has no value in it whatsoever. Just redo those filtering again, and that should, there we go. So now we can see for the origin column, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows without any data. Just select that back to all. Mode of transport. We have quite a few more. Let's have a look at weather. The weather's okay. Distance, oops, distance has some blanks as well. So we could look at those. Travel time's okay. Age group has 1. Carpool. Carpool has a lot. This is an interesting one with carpool. For carpool, are we saying that if there's no value in there, then there's no passengers and it's just one driver? Or if the value is 1, oops, are we saying that is 1 passenger? Or is it just 1 driver? So what I'm just very quickly going to go and do is look back at the data dictionary. Let's bring this over for a second. Go down to data strategy, data dictionary. Carpooling, it's saying it's an integer, which we are seeing, and it's the number of travelers in the carpool. So that to me means the total number of people in a car, as an example. So for me, if those values are blank, then I think they are erroneous and we need to do something about them. Quite a few rows there. So you could make assumptions about how many people would be in the car, but I think in this case that would be a little bit risky because you don't really know. You could delete all of the rows that have this missing value, or we could say there's not enough information in this particular column for carpool, and therefore for this analysis we're not going to use that as part of our solution. And I think that's the way I'm going to go for this for the minute, and to see where that leads us. I'm going to disregard the data that's in the carpool column for me to do my analysis. So what I'm going to do for all of the other columns that have blank rows, you could leave those blank values, those rows with blank values in them. But for what I want to do a little bit later on in this exercise, that might affect the visualization to be able to provide insights and to answer the question. So I think I'm going to go through each of these and delete any rows that have got incomplete data. Apart from the carpool one, which we can safely ignore because we're not going to be using that as part of the analysis. Any of these other columns that have got blanks, I'm going to delete those rows. There's not many. So as an example, origin, I think we said there was 9, wasn't there? So I will go through and select those rows and just delete those. So we have no blanks left in there. And I will do the same, just select that all to get everything. Mode of transport, select blanks. There's not many there either. So just delete those. Because we've got so many rows we can use in our analysis, deleting a few is not going to have a big impact on our analysis of this. Just quickly finish this off. No blanks there. Just one row there. Carpool we don't need to worry about. Whether we didn't have any peak, no peak, we didn't have any, and day, we didn't have any. So that's eliminated all of the rows with incomplete data for the columns which we think are going to be useful for us to do this exercise. What I'll do now is just go through each of the other files and make sure there's no blank values in any of the rows in those. They are much smaller data sets, but I'll just go through and do that now. Emissions is fine. Congestion factor is fine. Eco consciousness is fine. Extra costs is fine. And the last one is the fare per mile. Just have a quick look at that. And that's fine as well. So that's cleaned up the data to an extent where we've removed any missing data that we're not able to use. So I'm going to decide to start with 3 of the files in the data set and to see how I get on. So I'm interested in this main festival journeys file, and I think the emissions file will also be useful, and then potentially the fare per mile as well. And just as an aside, when you're working with large data sets, rather than looking at the drop down and looking at the different values in the list and manually counting them, one of the good things you can do in Excel at the bottom here is there's a formula you can enter to automatically count the number of unique values for any particular column. So if I just type in the formula here, it's equals count a unique, and then you put in the range. So we know the range is A. We can ignore the header. So it's from A2 is the beginning of the data, colon, and then the last row, which will be A. It's now, because we deleted, there are some rows with blanks in, it's now 1476, as you can see there just above. And close that with the brackets. Oh, it's got a typo there, that's fine, accept that. And there we go, it's telling us there's 6 unique values within this column. So we can now drag that across to here, paste it again, that's telling us for column B, there's 5 uniques. There'll be lots for the data here, so we don't need to worry about that. That's a carpool, weather, peak, no peak, and weekday or weekend. That's just a nice, easy way when you lots and lots of rows to quickly find out how many unique values you've got in any particular column. So a quick deep dive into each of the columns here. What does each column signify? So again, we've got origin, which is the beginning of the journey. We've got mode of transport, which is how you're traveling, petrol car, bus, electric car, etc. We have the distance, that's your journey distance. So that's going to vary depending on your point of origin. We have travel time in hours, so 1.5 hours, 1.8 hours, etc. Age group of the travellers, carpool, we don't need to worry because we're going to disregard that for now. And obviously weather is as it says, peak or no peak, that's whether you're traveling in peak travel times or off peak. So are you traveling during commuter hours or outside of the commuter hours? And then whether you're traveling either at the weekend or the weekday, which may or may not affect the carbon footprint. So as I've decided to work with 3 of the files, what I want to do now is to do an element of joining the data together so that it's easier to analyze the data as one big set. In Excel, the way I typically do that is I add additional worksheets at the bottom here. So at the minute, within this spreadsheet, we have one worksheet named Master Dataset, which contains the data for festival journeys, the main data. What I now want to do is to create another worksheet, and we'll just call this, we'll call it emissions. And what I can then do is to get the emissions data into this worksheet, so it's in the same file, I will open up the emissions file. And then I'm going to do a right click on the worksheet for this. I'm going to do move or copy, and I'm going to do create a copy, and I'm going to select, I want to copy it into our Festivals Journey main file and move it to the end, that's fine, okay that. So now within our Festival Journeys spreadsheet, we have 2 worksheets, master data set and emissions. Oh, it's here. So let me just delete that, rename that to emissions. And there we have the emissions data. So I'll now do the same with the fare data. So again, I'm going to open fare per mile and do move or copy. It needs to go to the Festival Journey spreadsheet, move to end, create a copy, and just rename that to fare per mile. I'll just call it, I'll tell you what, let's just call it cost for simplicity. So these are the 3 data sets, or the 3 sets of data, I should say, that I'm going to work with. And what I'm going to do now is just save this file as something else, save a copy, and I'm just going to call it Festivals Journey Merge, just as we do further work on this. So I've got, I can go back to that original file if I need to. So just save that. So now we're working on a copy of the data, but it's all got the same data in there. So what I want to do now is create two new columns in both the column J and column K. Column J is going to be some information from the emissions worksheet, and column K is going to be data from the cost worksheet. But the values will depend on the mode of transport. So I need to put in the value is going to depend on what the value is here in column B. So I want to, so if we're using a petrol car, I want to be able to go to the emissions tab and say, for a petrol car, what is the value? And then again, if we are going to be using a bus, I want to understand what the emissions are for a bus. So I'll go to the bus value here and retrieve the value for the bus, but put it into the master data set. So how do I automate that? Excel has a really good, useful function to get data from another worksheet based on an existing value, and it's called VLOOKUP. There's actually a newer version called XLOOKUP as well. For anybody using Excel 2016 or later, you can use XLOOKUP, which is slightly easier to use. But for now, for this presentation, I'm going to stick with the older VLOOKUP because it's backward compatible with the older versions of Excel. If you want to learn a little bit more about VLOOKUP, there is a document on Microsoft's website where you can go. If you just Google VLOOKUP, you'll come across this page really easily, and it explains the function of VLOOKUP and how it works, and you can do the same for XLOOKUP as well. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that all of the filters are off. So I shall just reset those now. Take that off. Then for column J, we are going to have emissions. So we'll do that one next. And we're going to use a VLOOKUP function. Is this VLOOKUP here? So we're going to say we need to go and get this value and then go to the emissions worksheet and look in the range of data, which is column A, row 2, all the way to column B, row 8. We want to get the value that's in the second column, and we're not worried whether it's uppercase or lowercase. Now that's actually coming back without a result. It's coming back with a not applicable, so there's some error there. And if we look at this warning box, it's saying a value is not available to the formula or function. So let's just have a quick look. We're passing into the function the value petrol car. The function should then go to the emissions worksheet and look for that petrol car value. And actually, as you can see there, we don't have a petrol car value. We have petrol car sharing, and we have petrol car solo travel. So we need to fix this to be able to reference this worksheet correctly. Now, as you can see, we've got two values of petrol car with two different emissions per mile values. So what we need to do is actually fix this at the Festival Journeys worksheet. So let's just have a look at that. So let's just add a new filter again and see what's going on. If I filter on petrol car, and if I set the carpool to 1, so we're saying solo, only one person in the car, which is the same as emissions petrol car solo travel. So what I want to do now for all of these rows, I want to change this value from petrol car to actually read petrol car solo travel, petrol car solo travel, that one there. So I'll just copy that. Paste that. Let's do it this way quickly. Paste those all in. Oops. Copy that. Paste that into there. Put it down to there. So that's copied in now. And then if I just look for anything that isn't one, so 2, 3, and 4, this is going to be the same as petrol car sharing. So just change that value there. Drag that all the way down. There we go. So just very quickly do the same for electric car, because that's going to be the same. Electric car. Let's just start again. Just so do it the same way with 1. That is going to be electric car solo travel. And then we want two, 3, and 4. This will be electric car sharing. Down to there. Right, that should have fixed all of those. So what we'll just do now is just put those back to everything. Let's just have a look. So we've got the value of bus there. Let's just check bus is the same. Bus is the same, that's fine. We have train and emissions, that says train. And we have walk, one of those, and that's actually walking. So we'll just change that one as well while we're here. So that should be that all done. So now let's go back now. Let's just take all the filters off for a second. And see what we've got now. Oh. Okay, so we're not going to be worried about where we've got carpooling. It's empty, so let's just put that down to, if I now copy and paste that same formula, that's better. So for bus, it's looking up the emissions for a bus. Car sharing, solo travel, electric car. Oh, we don't need that. We want, that's looking good. So just, if I now do, that's copied. So if I just paste that same value across all of the rows in column J. If I do Control Shift End, that should go down to the end there. Oops. Paste. That's giving us all the values for anything where we have carpooling with a value in. So I'll just do this, put a filter on here, just check that's still correct. Where carpooling is not blank. Just make sure we've got values for everything. That's looking good. So what I'm going to do now, just to make it a bit easier on myself, I'm just going to select where carpooling is blank. I'm just going to get rid of these rows because they're just becoming an annoyance. I know there's a fair amount of data there, but we know we're not going to use that for now anyway. So we'll leave that, clean that up. Okay, so that's now deleted. Now we've got a slightly cleaner data set again. So that's the emissions column done. And now we need to do the same for the cost column. So I'll just put in cost here. So the formula for this is going to be very similar, but we're obviously referencing the cost worksheet. So first column there, VLOOKUP. So again, we want the cost of a bus per mile. So we're still using that value in column B, but this time we're referencing the cost worksheet and this range from column A, row 2 to column B, row 6. We want the results from the second column again, and we're not bothered whether it's uppercase or lowercase, so it's not case sensitive. So enter on that and see what we've got. So there we go, we've got a value there for a bus 0.04, bus 0.04, so that's pulling in the correct value. So now we'll just paste all of those, do a copy and do a Control Shift End, paste. And we've got a few NAs coming up, which is interesting, so we need to have a look at that. So the value petrol car sharing. So let's have a look. We should have a petrol car sharing in the cost worksheet, which we don't. So again, this is fixing this data set reverse, if you like. So we're going to have to put in each of these into here. This is the way I'm going to do it, I think. So petrol car is 0.45. So we'll put these same values in. Petrol car, and electric car is 0.09. Electric car 0.09, 0.09. We can then get rid of those two. So the same figures are in there, but we've just made sure we've got the correct categories based on what we have referenced in the master data set. But now the range has changed because we've got a couple more rows. The actual range of data is from A2 to B8. So we just need to go and have a look at that again, A to be 8. Do a copy of that again, paste that back in. Now we've got proper values for everything. That's looking good. Brilliant. So now the final thing I want to do, I think, is to add one more column. I want a calculation of what the actual journey cost is. And the cost is going to be the cost per mile times the distance travelled in column C. So I'm going to create a new column and just call it journey cost. And this will be a simple calculation. So we're going to do equals sum brackets. So it's going to be C2 times, we want the cost, which is K2. And that gives us a cost there. Copy that. Paste it, Control Shift End all the way down to the end, paste. Now we've got journey costs now for each of those journeys referenced. It's good. Now I have spotted while we're doing that, there is a negative number here. We've got an error here, row 9, Bristol by bus, distance of minus 73.3. So obviously that's not correct. You can't have a distance of a negative number because that gives us a negative cost as well. So I'm just going to disregard that because we don't know what the distance actually was. So I'm just going to delete that row. And now I'm just going to do a check, a sanity check, to see if there's any other negative distances in here. Should be at the bottom. No, that's it. That looks good. So the data is looking fairly clean now. So I think we're ready to start doing some analysis and just to see what we get. Now what I'm thinking of using is another function in Excel called a pivot table. A pivot table is a very powerful tool to calculate, summarize and analyze data that lets you see comparisons, patterns and trends in your data. So again, Microsoft have some really good documentation on this. Again, just Googling pivot table Excel will get you to here. And if you want to know exactly how it works, there's a bit of reading there. But we'll go through that now and just see what we can analyze from visualizing the data in a pivot table. So I'm going to do a new pivot table. I'm going to do that by creating a new worksheet. And I'll just quickly rename this to pivot table. And then to do a pivot table, I'll just do it from there. I'm going to do insert and insert a pivot table. And it's asking me what range, what data am I going to be using for this pivot table. So I'll go over to the master data set and copy everything in here to there. Okay, that. So now I've got a blank pivot table. It's brought in all the different columns in that master data set. So I think I will select, we'll need to know about the origin and mode of transport, distance, and we want travel time. And let's have emissions, we're interested in that. and also we want cost. So that's giving us the sum of all of the vehicle types for each of these distances, travel time, emissions, cost for each of the location, the source of where the journey started. So now we've got the pivot table done. I'm looking at the columns. Can we add some more information to give us better insights? We've got the sum of emissions and we've got the sum of the cost. Can we do some averages? So average emissions per distance and average cost per distance, and then even average emissions per travel time and average cost per travel time. So let's add some more columns in there to see what that looks like for us. So if we just start off with average emissions per mile, so that will be a new formula equals sum, and it's a very basic calculation here. Average emissions per mile. So emissions is column E. So we want E4 is the first row, divided by distance is column C. So that will be C4. That gives us average emissions per mile there. So I'll just copy that across all of these sections. Do that first. And then we want average cost per mile, and that will be equals sum average cost. So cost is column F, so F4 divided by C4 for distance again. And again, I've got another value there. So I'll just quickly copy that down across each of the sections. And then finally, let's do average emissions per hour, because the travel time is in hours. So that's going to be equals some emissions is column E. So that's again going to be E4 divided by travel time is column D. So divided by D4. And then I'll just copy that down. And then finally, average cost per hour. So that will be equals some cost is column F. So F4 divided by travel time is column D, D4. And then just finally copy those down. So I think for me, this will be all the data I need to start getting some insights. Okay, now that I've got those figures, I'm going to use another feature of Excel called conditional formatting. And this will allow us to see a highlighted view of the lowest value in a particular range of data. So I'm just going to highlight the different values for Birmingham down to there, and go to conditional formatting, new rule, and I'm interested in either the top or bottom ranked values, and I'm actually interested in the bottom one value. So I want the lowest value in this selected range. I want that to be highlighted, and I just need to select a color for it to be highlighted in, and I'll just choose green. OK there, and OK to apply it. And there we have the lowest value there. So let's just do a sanity check, make sure that looks correct. 0.397 is indeed the lowest value. So that looks good. So I just need to now copy that across to the other sections. Just do that there. Click on this option here to paste just the conditional formatting. And again, just do a sense check on that, 0.411. That is indeed the lowest, that's good. So I'll continue doing that for each of these sections now, so we can start to spot some trends. Okay, so that's now all copied across. We have highlighted values for each of the starting locations of the journeys, and we can start to see some trends here. And it's looking like for Birmingham, bus is pretty favourable. Same for Bristol, same for Liverpool, London, Manchester and Newcastle. The average cost per hour is a slightly different result. So the electric car with car sharing is the best option in all cases. So from a purely emissions point of view, bus is the best way to go. And from a cost per hour, electric car with car sharing is the way to go. So using that general trend, what can we infer from it? Does the messaging need to be slightly different depending on whether you're interested in purely emissions per hour or whether it's cost per hour? So what would be a good strategy to promote sustainable travel to the festival goers based on our analysis? For me, it is about incentivising public transport and carpooling. Maybe discounts or perks for cars with 3+ people. That might be vouchers for food, drink, or access to VIP areas. There may be opportunities to work with travel companies, arrange for bundled deals, including ticket and public transport. And there are opportunities to educate and raise awareness to sustainable travel and its benefits. And that might be via social media, mail campaigns, festival websites, maybe to share tips to reduce carbon footprint. Other options might include on-site initiatives, ensuring clear signs and information about sustainable travel are available. So I'm going to present my campaign strategy on a PowerPoint slide and then have a mock-up of what a social media post may look like. So my key strategy will be collaboration with bus travel companies, promotion of bus travel to the festival via social media accounts, discounted travel with a festival ticket, and highlight the benefits of bus travel. It's relaxing to travel on a bus. There's no parking and it's green travel. And then the second part of that is promotion of carpooling, especially with electric vehicles. So people who travel with EV vehicles, VIP parking available for those with 3+ people in the carpool, extra drink voucher if traveling by an electric vehicle, and social media campaign in association with the festival accounts, things like Instagram or Facebook. I've also spent a small amount of time mocking up a social media graphic. I'm not very creative. I'm sure you can do better. This promotes the use of EV travel with multiple passengers with the reward of a drink voucher and VIP parking. So that is the walkthrough of how I have approached this problem. There are lots of different ways to solve this problem. There are opportunities to use some other parts of the data to gain more insights. Have you been able to gain different insights to me based on the data you have used and some other assumptions you may have made about the data? Are there any other data sets you think would have been more useful to help answer this question? But more importantly, has this piqued your interest in the world of data and what destination a career in data might take you? Good luck in your future. I wish you all the very best.